A pleasure to meet all at last, and welcome back to films I should have talked about years ago. Now what we're going to do is talk a bit about one particular Disney movie that is very rare and obscured by this point. It's one of the lesser known features that they had to offer through the Dark Ages, as they were known as. Post Walt Disney's own death. Anything that had happened after 1966 was certainly done in most of a way to keep us Disney fans occupied. Every new theatrical release that had came up between 1967 and 1994 were part of an era in Walt Disney's history where they have gone under a lot of trouble. Lots of new differentiations between casting, between productions, between all kinds of projects that Walt Disney himself was eager to put together in his own way to at least get the money rolling. In this particular case, this was basically the lowest of the low that Disney themselves actually had to offer. The Black Cauldron, 1985. At least in comparison to most other films released in the mid-1980s, this is seen as one that has indefinitely been forgotten about for all these years. Up until the point where I decided to rent it, watch it, and give my own statement based on this film. It certainly is lesser known because of a number of factors. Number one, there has been countless issues with trying to get the film itself released. First of all, with a lot of things that had basically happened within the studio themselves, from the fact that production actually had to be paused in a few separate ways, just so new members of the Walt Disney team, the Walt Disney Company themselves, had actually gone through in and out of employment in various ways. And they hardly had any guidance, any leadership within them, especially after Walt Disney's death had taken place in 1966. But in 1984, the likes of 3 new people would come by, oversee the company, and ensure that it would go forward with anything that they could do. Because the company itself was falling apart by the 1980s. So when the likes of Jeffrey Katzenberg, Michael Eisner, as well as another executive stepped up to claim a hold of the project and ensure that it would be done correctly for a theatrical release. Because at first the Black Cauldron itself was absolutely dark and violent. No joke about that. You could find clips of the actual violent, gory parts online nowadays. You could literally find clips of it on YouTube, even in HD. It proves that once and for all, no media is considered truly lost. But anyway, that you look at it, the likes of Michael Eisner, Jeffrey Katzenberg, everybody at the Walt Disney Company wanted to alter the film very heavily to ensure that it actually would meet any standard to be theatrically released for all audiences. In this exact case, what we got here is a movie that stars the likes of a pig farmer named Cauldron, who sets out on a quest to retrieve a very special kind of pig. A pig that is able to see the future. Because what happens after some time is that Cauldron and the pig are supposed to move out of their own home and go into another location where they would hopefully find a safe haven. And upon doing so, during their voyage, the pig ends up getting captured and taken away to a high castle that sits on top of a very dark, mountainous terrain covered by thunderclouds and lots of lightning. Cauldron himself is accompanied by various people of all sorts, including a small furry animal named Gruggy. Yeah, certainly the weirdest piece of character design and acting I might have ever had the urge to hear about. Probably a little bit weirder than the likes of what we've seen in past years. So when you really get down to it, I don't know what could probably be lower than any of the lows that we've seen here so far. The fact that this is supposed to be a quest or adventure type of film is one thing, But The Black Cauldron just hardly has anything to give based on adventure. It's certainly not like what we would eventually see in theaters with Lord of the Rings, for example, because the sequels especially have been gaining a lot of awards and popularity as the years went by. And while The Black Cauldron, at least for its time, tried to simply give us an adventure of a lifetime, it is undeniably dark, and it certainly is distraught, nightmare. Because by the time you get to the very end of the movie, it all comes down to claiming the pig, Tauren, his friends, his accomplices, companions that he finds out there. They're all up against the one and only Horned King. It's interesting to note that this movie had actually spawned a dark ride at Disney World Tokyo. Not kidding around here. Disney Tokyo has its own dark ride. And I say had because it eventually closed down about 20 years after it opened, which is a pretty long time for a theme park ride to be around, but still. It holds placements in a lot of hearts these days, specifically because what it is it's supposed to be a mystery tour at Cinderella's castle. Yeah, so it's technically like a crossover between Cinderella and the Black Cauldron. Actually, it does navigate a few other places as well, like Snow White and pretty much Maleficent. But anyways, it pretty much just ends exactly what you think it is. The Horned King himself, who is played by John Hurd in this movie, is defeated when Tauren utilizes the power of a special sword called the Sword of Light. And I don't necessarily know how to explain how this climax is supposed to be entertaining or satisfying by any means, but I will say one thing. A truly terrifying figure. I mean, the Horned King seems a bit generic for a name, but no matter where or why you look at it, this is one of those perfect examples of how Disney actually tried to be better than it used to. But it could not. The Dark Ages were the Dark Ages. And as soon as The Lion King came out in theaters and managed to gross at over $1 billion in America's markets and way more in the international markets with millions of merchandise and all that sort of stuff, the Dark Ages of the Walt Disney Company had finally been declared over. All over and done with. So The Black Cauldron is little more than a rare obscured piece for good reasons. My overall ranking on this, based on my own experience watching this, is probably only going to be a 5.2 out of 10.1. Certainly up there around the middle point, but that is still because of the reasons that I have showcased in this video, and I'm more than sure that any people out there who are watching this at the moment might understand. This is certainly not for the faint of heart. It is not Disney material. Not like today. They gross billions of dollars nowadays all the time for a reason. But back then, almost 40 years ago, it's not the case. A big box office bomb, lots of failures, and lots of rejuvenation would have to follow. And with that in mind, thank you very much for watching this piece. And make sure that you like, subscribe, comment, follow me on social media, and stay on the Hollywood side if you're looking forward to the next installment on films I should have talked about years ago.